Hello scrappers, welcome to part 2 of my series of Where's the Gold Hiding in E-Waste. And we're going to try this one indoors just because last time it was so windy outside. And it's windy again today, and well, I won't have to stop for airplanes flying over or loud cars driving by or whatever. There's a bit of an echo in here in the room I'm working in, so I hope the audio is okay. Okay, in today's episode, we're going to talk about connectors and fingers. Now, you may think there's not much to discuss with connectors and fingers. I mean, it's pretty obvious, right? If you got gold fingers, you got gold fingers. If you got gold-plated header pins, you got gold-plated header pins. You got gold connectors, you got gold connectors, right? Well, sometimes people don't think about what this stuff plugs into, okay? Every time you have gold fingers, the gold fingers are plugging into a socket. And it's hard to see in there because it's dark and the tolerances are tight, but there's gold inside this socket too. And I literally have a bucket full of these sockets that I have harvested off of all my circuit boards because, you know, I totally depopulate my circuit boards. So there's gold in here to be had. One thing you need to remember about connectors and fingers is they're always gold to gold. If you've got gold fingers or you've got gold pins, gold headers, whatever plugs into them is also going to have gold on it. So don't forget about the other half. So, you know, you got gold fingers, really nice. You've got the gold plating inside the edge card connector too. So you got to harvest the edge card connectors if you're serious about collecting all the gold in the equipment. I mean, you can't really see it in there, but here's another example of, you know, you got gold fingers there, but these edge card connectors, you can actually see the gold. I hope that's showing up in this light. There's a lot of gold in there. So these are kind of old school 1980s heavy gold plating, so it really shows up. These are newer. 90s, 2000s, the gold plating is a little thinner, a little harder to see, but it's in there. It's worth harvesting. If you get enough of these, you start getting a fair amount of gold. So, like I said, every time anything has gold on it and plugs into something else, the thing it plugs into is going to have gold. Who doesn't like ram sticks? What's not to love about ram sticks? They've got the nice gold fingers on them. Yeah, the ram, I'll tell you what though, I'll tell you a little secret. I think the RAM chips themselves contain more gold in them than the fingers do. So, you got the gold fingers here. Well, every time you've got a RAM stick, you've got a socket that the RAM stick plugs into on the motherboard. And some computer motherboards will have a whole line of these. So, you know, there's gold plating inside there that these plug into. So, you know, that's one reason I totally depopulate my boards, is so I can get all the stuff off that everything gold-plated plugs into. So again, I have a bucket full of, you know, connectors like these, edge card connectors and RAM stick connectors. No, seriously, I really have a bucket full. These are, get it focused a little better. You know, these are RAM stick sockets. Edge card connectors down here, mini RAM stick sockets, processor sockets. This is all of the plastic sockets, plastic body sockets that come off of computers and other electronic equipment. And over here, I've got the metal body sockets that come off. You know, the Ethernet connector ports, the USB ports, HDMI ports, printer ports, serial connectors, and the reason I sort of segregate them like this, mostly plastic, mostly metal, is just for their destination after I strip the gold plating off these things. This stuff's mostly plastic, so this goes in the plastic recycling. This stuff's mostly metal, this goes in the metal recycling. Alright, so, processors. Who doesn't love an old school Pentium processor like this, not only does it have a lot of gold pins on it, you know there's gold underneath this black cover too. So there's going to be lots of gold bond wires and bond pads in there, lots of gold. But guess what? It plugs into a socket like that. And that socket, all the little sockets every one of these little pins has a little socket that it plugs into, and they're all gold plated in there. So again, another reason I depopulate my boards totally. Get all this gold plated stuff off. And the same with the more modern pinless processors. They just have little gold pads on them, no pins. But guess what? The socket that they plug into has the pins. Little spring-loaded pins that are gold-plated on the end that the socket presses against, and all those little gold pads make a connection. So I depopulate the boards and I get these sockets off because there's a lot of gold plating there. So here's a board like this. Okay. So we got a connector here with gold pins in it. This sort of connector plugs into. Well, guess what? There's gold pins inside here. Inside all of the ribbon cable connectors that plug into the gold header pins there, or the gold header pins there. Now I've already taken the ribbon cable off of these. And you can pry or cut these apart and pull out all these pins, and you're going to find that they're all gold plated on the end where they mate with the pins in here. So, you know, you want to save these. Cut them off the ribbon cable. Sell the ribbon cable as wire, but keep these because they've got gold in them. It takes a little effort to get at it, but you know, it's worth it. Someday when you're bored, just sit down watching TV, take these apart, and dump the pins in a bucket, and before you know it, you'll have pounds of them. And sometimes you've got little header pins sticking up out here on the border, on the edge of the board, or in the middle of the board, whatever, that something like that plugs into. Well, guess what? These header pins are gold. These pins in here are gold. I don't know if that's going to show up on the screen or not, but there's gold pins in this thing. So, you know, you got to save this too and pull the pins out of it. So we're talking about where the gold is hiding here. It's not obvious. It's there though. Okay. So a couple videos back, I took apart a VCR and a Blu-ray player combo. And inside, actually I think it was just, I also took apart a Blu-ray player, and I think this stuff came out of the Blu-ray player. So there's a ribbon cable connecting the electronics for the drive with the read head on the Blu-ray player. And it's pretty obvious. You can see, oh look, the ribbon cable, the ends of it are gold plated. Okay, well guess what? That means that where the ribbon cable plugged into this board right here, it's gold plated, and where the ribbon cable plugged into the read write head here, it's gold plated too. And there's other gold plating on this read write head, so it's worth keeping anyway. But there's gold plating here, gold plating here. So you got to harvest this stuff. Now, a couple of non-obvious places where you might find gold connectors. Okay, audio equipment. A lot of high-end audio equipment. The RCA connectors are gold plated. I got a whole load of this stuff in a while back and stripped all the gold plating off of it. So keep an eye out for that. If you see old audio equipment, you can pick it up cheap, and it's got gold connectors on it. Also RF equipment, like radio stuff, a lot of times the coax connectors will be gold plated on them, so keep an eye out for that. One really fairly non-obvious place to find gold, a lot of people may not realize it, is inside hard drives. Now, some people may realize that, oh yeah, there's traces along the read-write heads here that are gold. Okay, yeah. But there's also an electronic pass-through, because the inside of the hard drive is hermetically sealed from the outside to keep dust and moisture out. So there's an electronic pass-through. And, you know, your hard drive control board will have some gold pins on the back of it, and they'll press against the pass-through. A lot of times the pass-through is gold plated too. I really hope that's showing up. It's pretty small. but there's, you know, like a dozen gold-plated pins here sticking up, spring-loaded, depressed against the back of the hard drive control board. And that's how the signals got in and out of the hard drive. So, watch for that. I mean, they're not always gold-plated, but sometimes they are, and I have a fairly large collection of them. And sooner or later, I will process them and get all that lovely gold out. Watch for them when you're taking apart hard drives, because sometimes they are gold-plated. Sometimes there's more gold plating there than you expect inside the hard drive, and you have to look close to see it. Otherwise, you're liable to miss it. So, one more place where you might not expect to find gold. These are lithium-ion batteries from like phones. Also, lots of other small electronics use them. And I hope that's showing up. The connection pins on the batteries are gold-plated. And guess what? The connectors inside the phone or the other device that this plugs into, they're going to be gold-plated too. So make sure you harvest those when you harvest the battery gold. You know, you got to get gold from both ends of all the connectors. That's kind of the theme here. Okay, you got a connector, it's going to be gold on both ends. So you got to get both ends if you want to get all the gold. So, one issue is a lot of this gold-plated stuff. How do you get the gold off of it? What's the best way to do it? Well, you know, you can put them in AP solution and dissolve the base metals and have the gold foils float off, and I did that for a long time. It's fairly time consuming. It takes a long time for the AP solution to dissolve the base metals, and you wind up with a mess. Say you've got, I don't know, a couple pounds of fingers, and you throw them in a big jug with a bunch of AP solution, and you let it bubble away for a week or so until all the base metals dissolve. Well, you still got all your gold fingers mixed in with all this fiberglass debris, and it's very hard to separate them. Very labor intensive, you're going to lose some gold. Like I said, I did it that way for a long time. Now, I don't want all my videos to sound like a commercial for Eco-goldex because, you know, I have no relationship with these people. It's just a product I use. And to be perfectly honest, it's kind of a pain in the rear to use. I wish they made it a little simpler with fewer steps. But putting stuff like this, you know, through the Eco-goldex is a good way to get the gold off with a minimum of effort. You just, you know, put it in the Eco-goldex, leave it there until the gold has all leached off, and then you pull it out, all the base metal, all the plastic is left behind. You can just throw it away, throw it in the recycling, whatever, and then you can precipitate the gold out of the Eco-goldex solution. So, if there's somebody out there in my growing audience, I appreciate all the new subscribers, by the way, thank you, welcome. If there's somebody out there in my audience who has a better way to deal with removing gold plating than the Eco-goldex, let me know, okay? And if you haven't heard of Eco-goldex, you know, I'll put a link up here, if it's not there already, to the video where I show how it works. And I need to do another video. I'll be doing another video soon because I've scaled up the process. I figured out how to work with the new formulation of Eco-goldex. So that will be showing up soon. But, you know, if there's a better way, because there are a whole lot of steps involved in the Eco-goldex, and, you know, it would be nice if there was a better way, a simpler way to get the gold plating off. So, let's see, connectors. One other thing I forgot to mention, let me bring this over here. Now, I'm not going to tear this apart because this will probably be the subject of a future tear down scrap out video over here, this module. But one thing I'll point out is a lot of these rack mount IT modules have connectors across the back here, and they're not obviously gold. You look at that, you don't see any gold, you just see a lot of plastic. But I'll tell you what, inside them, yeah, there's a lot of gold inside them. Kind of looks like that if you take them apart. So I'm not going to take this one apart because this one's probably going to be subject of a future scrap out teardown video. But and they come apart fairly easily. Usually they are pressed into the board rather than soldered in, so you can just wrench on them with a pair of pliers and pull them right out. In fact, I can't tell. I can't tell whether these are pressed in. I'd have to take the backing plate off. So, but keep an eye out for that. Again, non-obvious that there's gold there, but there's gold there. For those of you who stayed this long, thank you. And it's time for our bonus content. I'll be right back with that. All right, I think it's time for our bonus content. Thank you all who've watched this far into the video. So far I've been telling you where to find gold in electronics, but for our bonus content, I recently got a question from somebody who wanted to know where to find the silver in electronics. So I thought this would be a perfect opportunity, a little bonus content. We will talk about silver and where it can be found in electronics. So right off the bat, I'll tell you, my favorite electronic components are these gold corner BGAs. Not only are they full of gold, they often have a fair amount of silver in them too. Not always, but often they have some silver in them. And I have recovered a significant amount of silver when processing these for gold. So always check your waste solutions when you're processing electronic scrap for gold to make sure you're not throwing away a bunch of silver. Okay? So basically I got a lot of silver out of the waste solutions left over after I extracted the gold out of these. So always check your waste solutions. Another place you can find silver, and I don't know why they do this, but a lot of keyboards have silver plated traces on them. It's probably not showing up. You can see the gold in there, but there's also a lot of silver traces back here on this board behind this thing. And there's a big cross hatching of silver plating in here, and you can see how shiny that is there. That's all silver plated copper traces. So the silver is pretty easy to leach off of these boards. So always check your keyboards, membrane keyboards, even actual chiclet or regular keyboards, keyboards, typewriter type keyboards. Check them to see if there's a lot of silver on the traces. And like I said, I don't know why they use silver in there. I don't know what the advantage is, but they do. So always check your keyboards. Now, probably one of the more reliable places you can find silver in electronics is in capacitors. So here's a jar full of MLCCs, multi-layer chip capacitors. And every single one of these is going to have some silver in it. Now they may or may not have other precious metals. These are the magnetic ones, so they probably don't have much in the way of other precious metals. Non-magnetic ones have some palladium in them apparently. But they all contain some silver. And you know, if you depopulate your boards totally, you're going to find a lot of these, okay? But other kinds of capacitors have silver in them too. In older electronics, you'll get silver mica capacitors. And I wish I had some I could show you, but I don't have any right now. But Google that and see what they look like, because those are always worth saving because they have a fair amount of silver in them. But just about any kind of ceramic capacitor. Here's a little ceramic disc capacitor. Let me see if I can focus a little closer on it, actually. Okay, put the camera in macro mode. Let me see if we're getting a little bit better, closer focus. There's a little ceramic disc capacitor here. Here's a couple of them. Here's another one. There's one back here. I think that's probably a dipped mylar capacitor there. So here's a couple more ceramic disc capacitors. So they all have some silver in them generally. It's not a 100% rule that they have silver in them, but generally they do have silver. So your capacitors are generally going to be your best source of silver. And not all capacitors though. This right here, this is an electrolytic capacitor. That probably has no silver in it. Aluminum is generally what they're made of. There's probably some dipped mylar capacitors here, but that's what these blue things are. There's no silver in them. Oh, here's definitely, this is a dipped mylar capacitor right here. There's no silver in it. It's aluminum. Here's another dipped mylar back here. Now here's some discs, and I don't know if those are capacitors. These may be surge suppressors, not capacitors. And be perfectly honest, I don't know if they have any silver in them or not, or any precious metals at all. And I don't really see any on this board, and I didn't bring in my jar of tantalum capacitors. Wait a minute, let me take that back. This other board I was using earlier on has some tantalum capacitors on it, these orange things here. Now, tantalum capacitors are valuable for the tantalum they contain, but they also contain a fair amount of silver. So these two are tantalums, these are tantalums, there's a line of tantalums here. Not everything that's yellow is tantalum, though. Most of these capacitors on here are yellow, but they are not tantalum capacitors, and they don't contain any silver or tantalum metal. But yeah, and here's some more dipped mylar capacitors that do not have silver. But let's see. Yeah, so capacitors are going to be one of your most reliable sources of silver, as well as the gold corner BGAs and keyboards. Some IC chips other than gold corner BGAs have silver in them, but you can't really tell just looking at a chip whether it's got silver in it or not. And generally, if you process a big pile of all kinds of chips, there's not going to be enough silver in it to make it worth recovering. But stick with the stuff that you know has silver in it, and you'll do okay. Anyway, I hope you found this interesting, enlightening, educational, learned something, killed some time, whatever. Give the video a thumbs up, give it a like. The third installment will be coming along soon, and we'll talk about some other aspect of gold recovery from electronic waste. Subscribe to see those future videos, and press the little bell icon to be notified when they come out. Thanks for watching. Keep it safe out there. Bye.